I guess I wanted to ask you,
Yes.
Yeah.
are those audio CDs behind you?
Yes, this is the first jazz shelves in the world. Jazz shelves.
Jazz. Ah, okay.
He's a jazz man.
Wow.
And if you type in your Google, Water Jazz House Gallery, where I'm living now, I also have a facade out of this. You see the kind of orange
Yes.
brownie. Yeah, from outside it says jazz as well.
Wow. Amazing.
And I built this house with the basic principle of jazz, improvise. Because I didn't hire architect. I built using Google SketchUp with my brother who lives in Borneo.
Okay.
So we're doing using a team viewer, and I just giving him like instruction. No, I want to more left, more up. So we counting numbers later, but we try to design like Lego.
Amazing.
So we try to put, and he just putting in with the Google SketchUp and then build up something. And
Are you based in Jakarta?
I based in the tip of Jakarta. This is already part of West Java, but the Greater Jakarta we would say.
Okay.
It's in Depok near the University of Indonesia. It's about 14 kilometers from the heart of Jakarta.
Got it. Great. Mona, over to you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just gonna mute everyone. We're gonna start right on time at 10.
Sure.
So
sure.
Okay, is everyone ready? We'll start soon. We've got some attendees already here. Some familiar names. Hi, Nicolette from BCCK. I see her name here. And we've got some more viewers on YouTube. So those on Zoom, you can ask questions right here. On YouTube, you can also chat or put your questions on the chat option, and we'll be able to answer you. Very good, that's Nicolette. All right. All right, so hi everyone, a very good morning and welcome to the Tuesday Talk Live. For those who have been with us since the very first edition, welcome back. Thank you for joining us again. And the new ones, welcome. And my name is Mona Abdul Manap. I will be the host for today. Now, the Tuesday Talk Live is a platform for us to share ideas, knowledge, information, experiences from each other so that we can make better decisions. We pick on each other's brains, as they say. And all the past editions, we've had people from within Malaysia as speakers or panelists. They're not Malaysians, but they are based in Malaysia. But today, we have a very special edition where we're bringing you out of Malaysia. We're going to cross the boundary. If you guys were at last week's Sam Kim's edition, he was talking about crossing the boundary. And today, we're going to cross the boundary over to the UK, Australia, to Jakarta, and to New Delhi, India. And we've got a few speakers here from different countries and going to share with us how are they coping with this event right now. This, Peter calls it an event, everyone else calls it a crisis. So it depends on how you view it. So how are they coping and what are they doing in terms of business? How are they foreseeing the recovery coming up, and what can we learn from them? So the first speaker we have here is Mr. Martin Ellis, and he is the Managing Director of Team Umbrella. He's based in the UK. Hi, Martin. It's 3 o'clock in the morning there, so it might be a bit kind to Martin. And Team Umbrella is a full-service MICE agency. The next speaker we have is Mr. Peter Bliss, the founder of Business is Bliss. I love that name. It's based in Australia, and Peter is an author, a wellness, mindfulness, and human behavior expert, and has been in the MICE industry for about 30 years. I wouldn't tell your age now, Peter, but yes. And the next one, you've got Prashant Yadav, the Managing Director of Liberty International India, the world's largest privately owned DMC or Destination Management Company. He started off as a hotelier, but has been in the industry, the MICE industry, for about 25 years in total. And last but not least, our very near neighbor, Pak Agus Basuni, a dear friend, who's based in Jakarta, Indonesia. He is the founder of Warta Jazz, a media organization, and they cover MICE events, mostly music festivals, but also MICE events. He runs his own music festivals as well. He has about 10 music festivals at the moment, 10. Yes, you heard that right. But in Indonesia, I'm not surprised. So we're gonna go with our first speaker, Mr. Martin Ellis, and he's gonna, well, share with us what's happening back in the UK. All right, Martin, over to you.
Yeah, good morning. Hello, everyone. Okay, UK, what can I tell you? Things are we're calling it lockdown. I call it lockdown light, really. We are restricted as to what we can do, in so much as most people are not working. The government guidelines are to stay home. Unless you need to go out for shopping, for urgent medical needs, or for daily exercise, they think you can go out once a day for exercise. And if you have to work, if you can't work from home, then you can go out. But of course, many people are not working because retail is limited to food shops and pharmacies. Many other industries are just not happening because they involve people being in close proximity, and the expression of the day is social distancing. They advise you to stay 2 meters away from anyone who's not in your household, even if they're a close friend or a family member. So effectively nowadays you can go out to buy your shopping maybe once or twice a week. You can go to get some exercise each day, but you can't visit your neighbors. You can talk to them from a distance, but that's about it. In terms of work, it means there is no work. You are effectively scrabbling around for anything you can do virtually, any kind of online meetings or forums or that type of thing, which of course it limits participation in many ways, but it's a difficult situation. Looking forward, the bad news for the mice industry is in the past week, the government spokespeople have been saying that the worst place to be is in a meeting room, which kind of limits what we can do because after all we organise meetings. The government are doing a lot to help everyone, I have to say. They're giving grants, they're giving subsidies, they're organising and enforcing banks to give loans, unguaranteed loans, which I must add. They're doing the furloughing thing. I'm not sure if that's a global thing, but for anyone who's not aware of it, furloughing is where the government will subsidise the pay of non-working employees for up to 80% of their monthly salary, for 80% of their monthly salary up to a maximum of £2,500 per month, which is a very comforting amount for many, many people. But generally speaking, there's a lot of downside to this, as you'd expect. People are missing company, they're missing socializing. They can't go to a restaurant, to a bar, to a pub. If they go to the park, they're having to consciously avoid everyone. I see it myself. If I walk on the street when I go to get some exercise, people see you coming and they go to the other side of the road. Okay, it happens a lot for me anyway, but that's just all the life. But for most people, it's a difficult way to be. You see people standing back and making way for everyone, but in a kind of really obvious way. Traffic is right down. It's interestingly, I can see some positives coming out of it, but we'll get onto that later. So that's the state of the UK at the moment. We're still in lockdown and it's ongoing. There we go.
Thanks, Martin. The next one, I'd like to invite Mr. Peter Bliss. Would you share with us what's happening in Sydney, Australia?
Thank you for having me. G'day.
G'day, mate.
G'day, mate. Look, we're used to tragedies and crises, so that's why I call this an event. Mona said that at the start. It's some people are labelling it a tragedy. I have a holistic view of any event that happens, not just a meetings and industry event, but anything that happens in the world. But that's just me personally. But look, my view is that individually and business-wise, in the future, it depends on your mindset, how you're going to get through this. And it's simply two choices, in my view. Why is this happening to me? That's one mindset. The other mindset, which I think is a better mindset, is how is this serving me? Which is pretty tough when you know, lots of people have lost their jobs and lots of companies in our industry, especially in the business events industry, haven't got any work. There was an article on the weekend about the business events industry. At headline, it's on its knees. The event sector collapses. It's wiped about $35 billion from the Australian economy. That's what the Australian economy will lose in the next 12 months, about $36 billion in direct expenditure. Nearly all business events scheduled for this year are cancelled or postponed. So look, that's all pretty grim, you know, as an overall events industry point of view. But I'm seeing lots of, you know, creativity, even in our industry, with lots of, just people who are small businesses online, MCs, for example, staging companies who are now making, walls for hospitals and bedding and all sorts of different things. So look, I'm seeing lots of creativity as well as lots of drama. And I think, to me, there's always two sides to everything if you look. But look, there's lots of downturn in a lot of areas. We're going to lose an airline probably out of this. We've got two airlines, Qantas and Virgin. Virgin's just been put into administration. So, it's owned by, about 5 or 6 billionaires overseas. So the government was asked to support it, but they declined. I think it was a good idea. But, when we get back to normal, if there is a normal, we'll only have one airline, which is going to affect our business events industry because, that's Qantas. But look, I think the word at the moment here is sort of easing restrictions. We're at the easing restrictions stage in Australia. We've done very well the last couple of weeks in terms of not many deaths, not many infections even, single digit, 1 or 2 deaths a day in a whole of Australia, maybe 10 new cases every day for the last week. So some states are now starting to open up again. Bondi Beach opened up this morning after being closed for 5 weeks with restrictions, with distancing. So look, I think we'll be ready potentially earlier than a lot of other countries to take incoming business, but as long as people won't be able to get here because the airlines won't be travelling. So, all of our cases have come from overseas. Probably a quarter of our cases came from one boat, one cruise liner, the Ruby Princess, and probably half of our cases have been occurred in nursing homes, which were infected by individuals, who were going into nursing homes, who contracted it from overseas somewhere. I played golf on Sunday, for example. So look, golf courses are open. It's two per game. There's no flag. There's no buggies, so you can't sort of touch anything. But the golf courses are booked out at the moment, 2-3 weeks in advance, because we've always been allowed to exercise and go out for walks, etc., etc. Yeah, look, there's some. I think there's some good signs that within a month or so, our major football competition is supposedly starting again at the end of May. So they're planning to do that at the end of May. So, it's been an interesting month, but given we had drought, then heat, then bushfires, then floods, and now this, we're pretty resilient down here. And, we have a she'll be right, mate attitude at the best of times. And I honestly think the companies that don't survive are the ones who were probably in trouble before it, like Virgin. Virgin owed billions of dollars before this happened, and now they've been exposed, and now the government's not going to bail them out. So the government's bailing out a lot of people. We've got JobKeeper, we've got JobSeeker, we've got, if you're a small business like I am, if I can compare my 3 months ended in March to my 3 months last year, and I've lost 30% of my business, I can apply for some grants. And so, they're doing it quarter by quarter and month by month based on last year. So they're giving away billions of dollars, and I think they're doing a great job, to be honest, the government. And I think one of the main reasons is because the federal government, very early on, sort of formed a coalition of federal prime minister and then all the state premiers, who are all different, some are Liberal, some are Labor, but they got together and every day they had a sort of a fairly high-end meeting, and they made decisions for the whole of the country, no matter what their party, and they put aside their political differences. And I think it's worked, and I think we've done a lot of great things. And yes, I can give you some figures with the business events. 96% of business events are cancelled. 92,000 jobs have been lost, probably. 4 out of 5 are casual staff and freelance staff. So, thousands of them have lost their jobs. But I still think we'll bounce back. We're a resilient country. And I think it'll be up to the other individual countries as to how quickly we can, either do business with you, outbound or inbound, depending on how you're going. That's what I think the government will. We're most likely to do business with New Zealand pretty quickly. I'd say within a couple of months, because they're about the same rate as us. They've had about 20 deaths. They're easing restrictions now. So, Indonesia, Malaysia are close to us. I think, the countries that are close to us, if they can be sort of, showing the same positive signs that we are, I think there'll be some opportunities there. So that's a quick update from me.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Next up, Prashant, tell us a bit about what's happening in India.
Mona, thank you so much for inviting me. So India surprisingly has fared quite well because of the size of the country, despite the fact that, we are 1.3, 1.4 almost billion people. The reported cases are under 30,000 and the total number of deaths are only 800. I grant certain amount of error out here due to lack of testing because the country is just huge and we have 80% of the country in the rural area. So I see potentially number maybe up to 50,000, but even that 50,000 is a fairly encouraging number for a country that is 1.3, 1.4 billion people. We have been in a state of lockdown for almost 4 weeks plus, and the lockdown is very intense. Unlike other countries, we cannot go out at all. You cannot even step out of your home to even get basic exercises, nothing. In the first 2.5 weeks, you were only allowed to go to your neighborhood grocer to get your bare essentials. And out there also, you had to stand in a queue wherein there was social distancing up to 6 feet to 7 feet from one person to the other. You were not allowed to go inside the shop. Whatever you needed, you tell the shopkeeper and they will bring you back the stuff. And all monetary transaction was contactless, so that there are no currency notes changing hands and so on and so forth. And there were cops there are still cops everywhere. So if you step out of your house to take a walk or you try to drive, you will be sent back. You need to have a very valid reason as to why you're out. So I think that level of strictness did play the role in containing the first wave and flatten the curve, and we did not explode like a few of the European countries. So I think India also took a strong lesson from Europe in containing early, to the best of our understanding. And that's why so far I think we have escaped. We don't know if there's going to be a second wave. That's anybody's guess. But when it comes to businesses, of course, yes, tourism is wiped up completely. On the last, one of the estimates says 38 million jobs in India are at stake only in the business of tourism. Of that, 10% would be a good number to allocate towards the meetings and the MICE industry. So 3.8 million jobs related to the meetings industry. That is flattened out completely. It is anybody's guess as to what's going to happen post the lockdown, post this whole thing goes away. Nobody knows what the new norms would be of meetings, of travel. Would the convention centers or hotels or meeting spaces and airlines exercise certain amount of social distancing? How that's going to affect the meeting industry is anybody's guess. But first to start, as Peter rightly said, would be the domestic tourism and nearby tourism. So India for India, Australia for Australia, Malaysia for Malaysia. The domestic tourism would be the first to restart. Corporate travel would start first, followed by some bit of leisure travel, but leisure traveler would be very, very wary. Meetings, I would say, would be the last to start because the companies would be very cautious in putting people in the same room or I would say that would be the last to start the meeting. So my personal outlook, 6 to 8 more months before we see some sort of normalcy kicking in. But this is also time for us to think how we can innovate, how we can do things differently, what additional value we can add to our clients. As I think Martin mentioned, the stage companies are making walls for hospitals and beds for hospitals. So we have to be innovative, creative to see how else we can address the needs of our clients through innovation. This is the time for innovation, I would say. That'll be all, Mona.
Right, thanks, Prashad. Some good points there. And last but not least, we'll hear from Indonesia. What's happening there, Pak Agus?
Assalamualaikum, selamat pagi dari cloudy Jakarta here in Indonesia. Yeah, I would like to pick up the words of innovation that just by Prashant. That's there has been a discussion with my colleague here, and we're talking about the survival innovation. But before I'm talking about that, as you're probably aware, that's we also one of the country that has highest number, although it has been reported before until March 1st, if I'm not mistaken. We still have 0 cases here in Indonesia. There is a lot of debates about what's going on, but I think if we are in the optimistic overview, what I can tell is now government is implementing the more strict, unlike India, because we are now facing a new challenge because we are in Ramadan festivities, and it's very normal and very common that on each individual day before the breakfasting, everybody look for some snacks, some sweets, to their breakfasting. But one thing that has been implemented throughout the country is everybody, if they going out, they have to wearing masks. If you're not wearing masks, some punishment was waiting for you. And that means all the people who are in the textile industry, for example, having a new opportunity, because they are now giving my brother-in-law who getting immediate tons of orders of the masks. And now a mask is not just a mask, but they also put some like a batik mask. Even it has been circulated in my music industry people that they're designing the mask with something that basically identifying your hobby, like a jazz mask, pop, rock, whatever. So again, getting back to the one that I just mentioned about survival innovation. So if you are in an optimistic way, you will always see the opportunity. Although we do know that everything is like what I would say is like a control alt del situation. So it's like everything start from nothing. And I forgot to mention to you guys that actually I do have a background in IT business, and we've been experiencing what we call a bubble situation, which is happening in many times, and now suddenly the bubble is happening through the world to everyone. So it's unprecedented. No one has this experience before. And if we look at the how we see to see everything going back to normal, I don't think we will going back to normal. So please be prepared of having a new normal, and we are the one who defining what is the new normal is. In my specific relation to the music, because I'm a jazzpreneur. I'm doing a lot of stuff with concert, not just in Indonesia but around the world. Starting next 2 days, there will be live, real-time live concert by the Indonesian famous pianist Indra Lesmana, who lives in Bali, and he's doing a duet with also famous Indonesian guitarist Dewa Bujana, who based in Jakarta. So this is also shifting. Another thing, I saw a 25% increase in broadband needed for people, because everybody now works from home. Everybody needs more broadband. But still, there are challenges, and I think in every aspect of life there always be a challenge. But if you are truly an entrepreneur, you will see the opportunity. I think that's for me for the moment.
Okay, thank you all. So we've got, I think, quite a few of you mentioned about innovation and creativity. I'm not sure. I think was it Peter who mentioned about the companies building cubicles, or was it Martin who mentioned that? How do you see? I think here as well, a lot of the exhibition organizers or suppliers, they're actually making cubicles for the hospital, or those testing pots, they call it testing booths. So that's using what they know best, what they do best, and using it for the community right now. But in terms of business, how do you see any of the companies? Are they diversifying for the time being, or in the near future, or collaborating with people who they would normally not collaborate with, but because of this situation, maybe they are? Do you see any of those happening in your countries? Peter, maybe you want to start first.
Yeah. Look, I mean, restaurants are an example. Restaurants closed 5 weeks ago, except for takeaway. But a lot of those restaurants have gone online and started delivering themselves. So it's decimated a lot of restaurants that have just closed. But I have a client who has just signed a lease for a new place, and he's just really keen to do online and do deliveries and do, he closed his restaurant, but now he's just got a whole new mindset of I've closed my restaurant, but now I'm going to go online, and I'm going to people can come to pick it up, their food, or I can deliver. Even the major supermarket chains here are having a huge increase in online. One of our major stores, Woolworths, have just done a deal with Uber. So where people can ring up the major grocery store, and Uber will deliver. So that they've employed thousands of new staff, Woolworths and Coles, just to keep the shelves packed. And now the staff are doing special little deliveries for individuals at home. And then Uber comes to pick up that little grocery store delivery and delivers it to the home. So, look, there's quite a lot of, not so much maybe in the events industry, although I'm seeing some creative stuff with MCs and with, there's some people doing a lot of stuff online. I mean, Zoom meetings have skyrocketed. I heard internationally it's gone from 10 million a day to over 200 million meetings a day. Wow. And some of those meetings are government, governments are still working. They're all working from home. And some AV companies have got more opportunities because they're creating, backgrounds and getting all the technology correct, which bigger companies need more than just a little Zoom. Do you know what I mean? So I know there's different levels of Zoom. I'm still a bit of a novice. Yeah. Look, I'm seeing some creativity there and some opportunities there, even in the event space. And a lot of people with longer term congresses and conferences, they're still planning those, for when we open up. So, and just I guess hoping that things will open up at some stage. But I agree with Prasad, it'll be probably 6-8 months. I don't know it won't be this calendar year, I don't think. It'll be next calendar year at the earliest. For international conventions or conferences and that sort of thing, at least, I think.
Yeah, I think, I mean, even if we were to say, for example, I read online, there's some conferences that still run. So you sit at home, but you get your conference packs delivered to you. So you probably get a bag and your lanyards and whatever gifts that they're going to give, they get it delivered to you, but they have to coordinate this in such a way that everyone around the world will be getting it before the conference or something like that. But I think even that it's far-fetched, I think, for now. And you're going to have to wait, like Prashant said, about 6 to 8 months before you see any actual meetings being being held. But the other one that you mentioned as well about this technology usage and all that, and Agus, you mentioned about this technology bubble. This is, everyone's talking about online conferencing, online events, webinars. We're having a webinar right now. So what is this technology bubble that you're talking about? And yeah, what's happening?
Well, eventually, if everyone is using the same technology, it will be overcrowded, it's flooded. So we expect, because you cannot increase the bandwidth immediately, this infrastructure taking time. But as we already agreed to the words of innovation, so people are now start thinking to have even more, a more capacity to deliver, but it's less consuming of everything. So I presuming that now we are having more clean air outside because it's less spending in energy, for example. But of course, it's more energy in consuming of server bandwidth and things, etc. So it's interesting that you're mentioning in Australia that I think in Malaysia too, there is Grab and Gojek. One of the startup now is becoming really big. And in Indonesia, they are not just doing like Uber does before. We have also the motorcycle taxi, and we have the delivery service. We have a massage, food, almost everything. Even we have the e-money or virtual money, which is each individual. This becoming a fintech company, which is, I don't know what the category is anymore. I mean, the category is not important, but we know that this is the solution. And what I can see is even I saw it for myself that now I can even transforming my company experience when people attending to the concert, and now they cannot go anywhere. Is actually giving us a chance to analyzing more about our market and how the best way to reach out of them. So first thing that I would like to share, if it is, we can consider it as a tip, is please keep communicating more closely to your current customer and future or possible customers, because they, in their very limited situation, if you are hugging them, you are most likely the first one that they will remember when things are going back to the new normal. And the second thing is, because I'm doing a lot of concert that's not normal. What I'm saying is not normal is because I'm making a jazz festival in a small tiny island in the northern of Borneo, where only 3,000 inhabitants in that island. But I would say it's one of the last paradise on Borneo. It's a pristine water, it's a very white sandy beach. And you can see 1,500 special animal, mostly fish, and a lot of stuff. And this actually can be a platform. I mean, the situation like this can be a platform for me to introduce more ecological or ecotourism kind of stuff, because that means we are consume less in terms of energy. We are more aware of the environment kind of thing, and we are more responsible to what we are doing, and more sharing to the people. Something that probably we've been just missing out in the last couple of years in our normal daily life. Now everybody, especially here in Indonesia, now we are more look out to our own families. I myself have to teach my kids on finishing their tasks because the school is working normal and also using Zoom and also other video con technology. So I think, yeah, again, back to the my statement before that, if you see the optimistic side, there are a lot of opportunities.
Yes, I think that's right. And we've been talking about what other people are doing. So if you don't mind, maybe you want to share what your companies are doing right now, or what you guys are personally doing for your business. Maybe at the current moment, how are you seeing your recovery plan coming along? Martin, you've been quiet. Maybe you want to add something?
I was sleeping, sorry. No, you know, I keep hearing people say the new normal, and I don't really know what the old normal was. This isn't an industry where we have normal, I don't think. We, as a company, have embraced, I use this expression, we've embraced the compulsory downtime. We tend to work in a quite intense environment, and it fluctuates a lot. There are pressures on all sides, and those pressures are never predictable. Personally, I've taken this time to recharge my batteries. I pretty much switched off from work for a few weeks. On a personal level, I've exercised more, I've eaten healthily, I've slept more, done more yoga than I should have done, or more yoga than I should have done before. In terms of the business, I've taken a real step back, and I have ensured that the bare minimum that needed to be done was covered. On the back of that, I'm now looking at the design for the new website, which is something that I've been putting off for a long, long time. We're looking at new content because we have to adapt to what's going on and what's likely to be the new status quo. Going back to what I made, the point I made earlier about meetings being taboo. They're very much taboo in the short term. In the longer term, I think it will be, well, let's see. People are saying they don't think it will be this calendar year until before we get back to the larger convention type things. And I'm inclined to agree, because I think realistically, until there is a vaccine, or I don't like to use the word cure, but some kind of true prevention for the virus, some true treatment, I can't see any great number of people willing to risk it. The latest news we've heard in the UK is that the previous belief that once you've had it, you're immune, well, that might not be true. Too many unknowns. So to even get a couple of hundred people in the same space together, again, there's a duty of care which employers will have. There is an air of sensibility that most people will have. You'll always have those who are carefree. You know, they'll take the risk if it's worth it, but not in such numbers that will warrant the time and the investment and the pulling together of everything. Now, for my company, one of our areas of speciality is smaller groups, and I like to see that my belief, whether it's just blind optimism or whether it is founded on logic, which does occasionally happen, I think that the start of the easing of measures in our industry will be they will allow smaller meetings. I think there will be more precautions taken. It might be that there are temperature tests. It might be that, who knows, they may just limit it to 25 or 50 people. And that works fine for me, because a lot of what we do is small training groups. We do quite intense things of that nature. We do a lot of incentive type things and team building things. Again, how that will go about, I don't know, but we can only plan for it. One of the other areas that we do cover is in training, some specialist training. We're lucky in that some of that training is compulsory. It's in the medical field, and it's where those trainees have to have the training once a year. So that will go ahead whether we like it or not, and obviously we like it, but there's no way of saying that won't happen. Another area that we're actually just launching is related to mental health, and coming out of this, there will be a big focus on mental health. Again, that's a gimme, because there are so many people who are certainly in the UK stressed out from, believe it or not, being asked to stay home and watch TV. They just can't cope with it. The Brits are like that. They really don't like to not be in control, and they loathe change that is forced upon them. One thing I would like to also touch on is I mentioned in my opening salvo that I can see some positives in this. On a social level, we seem to have regained this whole element of society. There are people who are now, but my mother is elderly, and she telephoned me one day to say that a neighbour she'd never spoken to had knocked on her door and gave her some milk and bread because they didn't know she was okay. But we're hearing about those things every day. That, in fact, we don't hear about them because they're commonplace now. Whereas in the past, the perfect example being that neighbours might not know each other. Now they're looking out for each other. They're saying hi across garden fences or waving through windows, and people are acknowledging each other and just doing things, supporting each other. I'd like to think that spirit will carry on. I hope it does. And I see that as being key to pretty much every industry getting back on its feet, because people want to help each other now. But I've rambled. I've gone off topic. So it's nearly 4 a.m. So
are you sleep talking?
I am indeed. I do a lot. So. But no, anyway, going back to business, I think it will be a slow awakening. I think it'll be greatly changed from what we know. I don't know when we'll get back. We will get back to the whole international thing, but I don't know when. Until this thing is not just tolerated or managed, but actually controlled.
Yep.
We're going to be very, very limited.
Right. I like how you say it's now a compulsory downtime. So people in events, they know it's a really stressful job. I would say it's one of the top 5 most stressful jobs in the world. And this is you're forced to relax now. You're forced to stay at home and have no control over the event. So if anything happens to my laptop right now, this event is over. So you have completely no control over things. So I like that it's a compulsory downtime, which I guess all of us need, and
Yes.
you have to be forced into it for you to take it, because events people, we don't stop working. And Prashant, how about you? How about what are you doing with the company, your own company right now?
So one of the things that of course, there's zero business and nobody's working, but we do know eventually it will come back. In what shape or form is anybody's guess. 6 to 8 months, yes. Quarter 2 2021 is when some sort of a normalcy will start to creep in. So we're trying to stay relevant to our client base. I think Angus said, or Peter said, that this is the time that we need to hug our clients and be with them. So apart from being in touch with all the clients virtually, we are conducting webinars with a difference. So every day we do an hour's webinar wherein we present one of the new products, one of the destinations across the world. We have 80 countries. So we do that for about 45 minutes. And then I do a different edition, a different presentation to that for about 15 minutes, a subject which is completely non-relevant to tourism or MICE or meetings or anything. A subject that they would have not looked for actively information on, a completely different subject. So Subjects like one day I spoke about how does Formula One work? Now, how many of us would actively go out and try and research how does Formula One work? One day I spoke about, okay, what are wines? A crash course on appreciating wines. Red, white, rosé. Okay, how are they made? Which countries? So very small, simple modules that you would show to an elementary classroom person. One day I spoke about the concept of Concorde plane, that we had supersonic passenger planes already 30 years ago. And that technology doesn't exist today. From London to New York, you could get in 3.5 hours, which takes 8 hours today. So what happened to the Concorde? One day I spoke about awards and medals. So we frequently hear in the press, okay, so-and-so got Nobel Prize, Magsaysay Award, Oscars. So I made a list of about 25 top medals and awards and what are they given for, who gives them and how does it work. So interesting trivia about things that usually we will not go out and research and look for. Put it in a small structured box and present it in a very simple manner. So stay relevant. The second thing, I think there's going to be an opportunity for large corporations who are permanently going to adapt to work from home culture. One of the largest Indian IT companies that employs close to 200,000 people announced that post this episode, 75% of their workforce will continue to work from home. Now, all these companies are going to look for very effective and creative means of mental health of their employees, because their employees are going to be at home. They're not going to socialize. So they're already looking for online solutions or maybe offline solutions of well-being of their employees. That's an opportunity for MICE companies and tourism companies to come up with modules for well-being, virtual or otherwise, in smaller clusters when the lockdown happens. Okay, in this part of the city has 200 employees of 3 companies, and let's do an event for them and so on and so forth. So that's going to be something new that's going to come out as an opportunity. So stay relevant is what we're trying to do, and constantly think of something new to do for our client base. Yeah, that's it. Stay relevant.
Yeah. I think that's fantastic. The two of you guys, I think Prashant and Martin, both of you mentioned about mental health. And I think in the meetings industry, we could go more in that direction, but in smaller groups. So you have to put all these together. So there are smaller groups. We'll talk about mental health. We'll have conferences, small conferences maybe about mental health and how people are coping with this. And in future, if we need to go through this again. Peter, did you want to add something?
Yeah, look, I'm noticing that already. My business is basically mental health. I'm a speaker and a coach and a mindfulness speaker. And I'm 5-6 weeks ago, I lost all my business, basically, my face-to-face business. And then the last 3 weeks, I've been doing more Zooms. I've learned more about Zoom than ever. And I think I did 4 Zoom calls yesterday. I did, I think, 10 last week. These are mental health lunchtime workshops, teaching people mindfulness, teaching people how to meditate. I teach Qigong and Tai Chi. I've been doing more of those than I've ever done before. And yeah, every speaker has mentioned it. Mental health is going to be huge, which, I mean, it's great for someone like me because that's the area that I'm in. But look, it's just something that I've definitely noticed. I did a workshop with Boston Consulting Group, one of the biggest companies in the world, last Thursday night. We had 200 people online, all over. It was all over Southeast Asia. I did one in Australia on Tuesday with a university with 200 people online. I'm doing one this Friday with another university in Adelaide. Just a lunchtime, mental health and well-being. So, look, I think I'm very grateful for that work because I was stressed out myself because I lost all my face-to-face work, because I used to go into companies or go into conferences and do this stuff. So look, I'm one of the lucky ones, I think, but right place, right time, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, we also had Anzac Day. I just want to point this out on Saturday, which is a Australian-New Zealand Army Corps. We celebrate and remember our veterans, our war veterans, lest we forget. And look, I found some letters that my mother's father had written to her mother when he was in a prisoner of war camp in Germany after being captured at Fromelles in 1916. I've got an envelope full of letters that he wrote from Black Forest, Germany. He was in his just early 20s. He was captured and he spent 2 years in the First World War in a prisoner of war camp. Now, reading through those letters, it sort of made me put a bit of perspective on this. Do you know what I mean? And I had one of my sons and daughters were here for dinner, and they were fascinated, and they couldn't believe that I had these letters. I'd sort of forgotten about them, but I even posted one on Facebook and one on Instagram, and it just puts it all into perspective. I mean, he was in a prisoner of war camp for 2 years, and this is before he even met my grandmother. And if he hadn't have made it, I wouldn't be here. Do you know what I mean? So, there's still a lot to be grateful for, I think, even in this crisis, if you want to call it this, or an event. And I practice every day some mindfulness, and I do a gratitude meditation, which I've been giving away a lot of little tips and techniques like that for free on Facebook and on LinkedIn. In fact, if there's any listeners on LinkedIn want to link me in or Facebook me, there's some free meditations, there's some free little tips and techniques, which I think is what a lot of us, that's what I'm doing as a business, just as Prashant said, just staying relevant, not trying to sell anything necessarily, just being, I've made a lot of phone calls to a lot of my customers. I've rung them and said hello. There's a thing called Zoom fatigue that's even starting in a few businesses.
Yeah.
But ringing people is nice,
I think, that's great. If a mental health and wellness trainer is getting stressed out, can you imagine people like us, the normal people like us, we're getting even more stressed out with the loss of...
Well, I actually wrote an article. This is why I wrote an article 3 weeks ago. It's on LinkedIn. Please look at it. It's called Don't Expect to Stay Calm, Stay Connected. Because I was fed up with leaders and health experts and celebrities saying, please stay calm. You're not going to stay calm during this crisis. You're going to have moments of stress. You're going to have moments of panic. You're going to have moments of overwhelm. You're going to be depressed sometimes. You're going to be anxious. These are all normal feelings. We're meant to experience all these feelings. It's not about ignoring those feelings and hiding them. It's about just experiencing them, and it's what you do to them that matters. It's not the feelings that matter. They're normal human feelings.
And perhaps it's also good for you to experience those feelings because it gets you moving. It pushes you to do something. If you're too calm, you're just gonna stay at home and watch TV the whole day and not do anything, or watch rugby.
We need challenges. We all need challenges to help us grow and evolve.
Yeah. Okay. So I have one question here from Nicolette. She is from BCCK, Borneo Convention Center, Kuching. For those who have been to Kuching, I think you've been there before. With many convention and exhibition centers being used as field hospitals or quarantine centers, do you believe this will stigmatize these venues where, once they reopen for events, clients, or members of the public, they may be reluctant to use or attend events at these venues? What do you guys think? Who wants to go first? Martin, you're shaking your head, so you want to go first.
I don't think it will stigmatise them at all. If anything, it will give them some kind of iconic status.
Yeah,
I think people will be so grateful that whether it's the owners or whether it's the people who are managing the venue were willing to do that for the good of everyone. And similarly, I think that the venue will probably use it to their advantage and say, hey guys, look how flexible we are. We used to be a concert venue, but then for 3 months we were a field hospital, and next week we're going to be an exhibition venue, that kind of thing. It shows flexibility, but certainly it won't stigmatize it, because it's not as if, hopefully, people will catch the virus by going in there afterwards. I think they'll just be grateful for what the building represents.
Yeah, Prashant.
I think as Peter rightly said, they should, as Martin rightly said, they should be proud of what they're doing right now. If I was a custodian of any such venue, I would carefully photograph what's happening and proudly display after this as an exhibition that this is what we did. Look, we have this amazing venue, and look what we did in the crisis. So we were a part of the society. And after that, it depends, of course, there would be proper sanitization and everything would be taken care of. It also depends how effectively you create a message to the society as to how we turn it around, what processes we adapted to sanitize the whole place in a more scientific manner, in a more advanced manner, and then very carefully preserve the photographic evidence and put it somewhere at the entrance of the reception that this is what we contributed towards during the crisis. So I would wear it as a medal of honor that this was my contribution to my country and my society. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of looking at it, and I think a lot of people will agree with you guys. And I don't think that applies to just venues. I think it also applies to companies who are doing something for the community right now. So not just looking at your own recovery as a business, but how can you help the community recover as a community, because you cannot survive without them. And you have a business running, but everyone around you is bankrupt. What are you going to do? So I think if you're doing something right now, I think that's a good, that's something, it's a badge of honor that you can wear later on and say, hey, we were part of the community then when you guys were suffering, and we're going to be part of you guys now when we're all okay. So I guess a lot of businesses, we need to think about what can we do for the community now, instead of just thinking about our business, about making profits or revenue streams. Now, there's another question here. There's a lot of low-cost airlines, or just any airlines. They're rethinking their business model and probably having less seats, or for people to sit, alternate rows, or not sitting at the middle seats or something. Alternate row occupancy, they call it. So if your business depends on people traveling and numbers, do you see this affecting your business model, or what you do, or do you see this happening at all this airline thing? Martin, you're laughing there, so what have you got to say?
There are several expressions and jokes based around airplanes about how you get hundreds of people in a very large toothpaste tube floating through the sky. The whole idea of social distancing is that you don't have any immediate contact. There are all sorts of statistics. If someone coughs, then the droplets will spread X meters. If they sneeze, if they're breathing, if someone breathes in your direction, how close do you need to be? If you factor in the fact that you're going to be stuck in a big metal can with hundreds of other people, it kind of exacerbates that. You can wear your mask, but unless you're wearing a full surgical mask with filters, probably won't do the job. I think a lot of people will be reticent to get on an aeroplane anytime soon, unless they absolutely have to. There will be some people who will do it, but again, if you think about, okay, let's keep the center seat empty. Well, what do you do if you're in the window seat and you want to get out and go to the lavatories? and how do you pass people in the aisle when you want to walk one way and they're walking the other way? It just would really not work. When the seat in front of you leans back and you're thinking, hey, we're not 2 meters, what do I do? I think another factor is that it would not be cost effective to run at anything like the levels you would need to do to have enough space for people to have space around them. So if you work on the basis of the famous 2-meter rule, then you'd have no one in the seats in front, no one in the seats either side of you, at the very least. So you're probably looking at what, 10% occupancy on an aeroplane. So the prices would need to go up to make it viable, which is all quite interesting. On the airline question, I did hear a very interesting statistic recently. British Airways apparently have something like 70% of their fleet in the air at any one time, globally. What's causing them huge problems and huge expense now, beyond the obvious lack of income but maintaining staffing levels, is the fact that they've now had to ground nearly all of their fleet, and they've got nowhere to put them. So they're having to pay huge amounts of money to park these things and just leave them. But again, going back to the whole thing, will people fly? Not in any great hurry, I don't think. Not in the numbers you need to make it worth it from a business perspective.
Yeah, so even if airlines had those alternate occupancy or alternate row occupancy thing, people are not going to travel anyway if they don't want to. And it's not like you're going to be any safer than traveling in a full flight if you were in an alternate row occupancy, like you mentioned. Those are the only questions we have at the moment. Yeah, Prashant, you wanted to add?
Just wanted to add to the airline thing. I think the one thing that will come out of this whole thing, and if the airlines do implement a certain amount of restrictions, and that's going to push up the prices, what's going to be very interesting is everything's going to be taking place in nearby regions then. So it would be an advent of deglobalization. All meetings and travel would be short haul, because if the prices go up, a lot of people will just stay around. So I'd say 80% of Europe will stay in Europe, 80% of Southeast Asia will stay in Southeast Asia, and so on and so forth. So we'll have these pockets. And earlier on, people used to hold large meetings, global meetings, a company putting together 5,000 employees in one place from across the world, or 1,000 employees. That may not happen anymore. It will become very regional and very short haul. And then a lot of things would be new normal. For example, 10 years ago, when 12 years ago, when this very horrible tragedy happened in Mumbai, all of you remember when the 2 hotels were attacked and there was a terrorist attack. The new normal out of that, every single hotel that you enter today in India has an airport-like society. It became a new normal. It's not there anywhere in the world, but if you enter a 5-star or a 4-star hotel in India, you have to go through a metal detector. You have to take out everything from your pockets, and you would be frisked. Your handbag would be put through a metal detector just to enter a hotel. It became a new normal for us. When I go to another country and I don't see security at the door, I feel awkward. That, am I entering the right place? Yeah. So, it just became a new normal for us. And a lot of things will become a new normal for us, the airline thing. We don't know what those would be exactly, but I think in the next 2 quarters, we will know the answer to that also. But it would be a new normal for sure. And things would be regional, which is good for the local economies. A lot of micro-regional economies will get created who will cater to these new breed of businesses that's going to happen. So I think it's going to be a good thing. It's going to be an amazing thing for smaller businesses. So all attendees today who are small business owners, it's good news for us.
Okay, that's the first time that we're hearing that. Before this, it's like, it's a doom and gloom kind of perspective from a lot of people for small and medium enterprises.
It's a reset button. It's a reset button.
Yeah.
Some bit of pain. Imagine you're going back to college for studies this 1 year. You've taken 1 year off your jobs and you're going back to college, and you'll come back a better person, I promise you. A more resilient and a stronger person.
Yeah, Peter, you wanted to add something.
Just one of my philosophies on everything, there are benefits and drawbacks to everything if you look. So that's just a way to look at things. As a business, as an individual, anything that happens to you, it's not what happens to you that matters, it's how you respond to what happens to you that matters. So if you look, if this happens, there's going to be benefits and drawbacks. If that happens, there's going to be benefits and drawbacks. This can go historically. Anything that's happened from individually to you from birth to zero, birth to this current day, if you're still resenting that, and if you can't see how that was on the way to where you are today, then that's sort of that's emotional baggage. That's a definition of emotional baggage. So it's wise to just change your mindset a little bit around, and good, smart businesses, the big businesses that survive, they will have already done contingency plans on this sort of thing happening, you know, on 3 months, 6 months of loss of business. And they've got, you know, the smart businesses will have a couple of months funding to get them through that. You know, it's the ones like in Australia, Virgin, they're about to go under anyway. They're going to go under. You know? Someone else might buy them. But yeah, benefits and drawbacks, not positives and negatives, benefits, drawbacks, everything.
Yes, Martin.
Yeah, just touching on that point. In the UK, in the mice industry, we have a lot of small companies. I actually work as part of an organisation which has a membership of 80 small agencies, privately owned, independent events agencies. I speak to a lot of them on a fairly, currently a daily basis. We sort of stay in touch with a lot of the members. My belief and my perception and my expectation is that out of this situation, the company's more likely to fold or certainly struggle greatly will be the bigger agents. From a small agent perspective, we look at them and we can't understand how you can have a company with 60 or 80 employees and you're employing 2 people to do your social media, 1 person to cater for this, 1 person to cater for that. It just doesn't make sense to the smaller agents who are used to doing a lot of things themselves, learning to outsource properly, looking at budgets. But then we don't have the giant clients who are spending millions. They have, you know, massive budgets to do massive projects. Now, with the larger agents, they're going to find that a lot of the larger clients aren't spending that money. So their income will be hit, their staffing will be hit because they probably won't be able to afford to have all these luxury people around to do the jobs that the rest of us learn to do ourselves. The smaller agents, of course, well, we work through adversity. We see it every single day of the week. We're scrabbling for the work we do get to survive. We're not the people getting these 5-year contracts with Jaguar to produce these magnificent events for them. We are seeing and hearing about larger agents, some on the grapevine, some actually public knowledge, which are either closing or massively downsizing. But what we're also seeing is they weren't prepared and they're still struggling to adapt to this. Whereas the smaller guys are saying, okay, I'm out there, I'm looking at what I can do for the clients I've got. As Peter said, they're staying in touch with people. The larger guys just aren't. They're sort of scratching their head saying, well, what do we do now? Because they're not used to having to think on their feet, as indeed the rest of us are. So I see that the future is better. I've mentioned several times earlier that I think smaller meetings will be de rigueur. They'll be certainly the more the sooner to start up again. But again, the big players, they're not interested in small meetings. They want huge numbers because that's what they have to have. That's part of their whole plan. It's part of their mechanism is based on big numbers. They won't do the small 25, 30 people meetings that we'll do for a 2 or 4 day training seminar. Doesn't interest them.
That's a great idea. And in the Southeast Asian countries, we have a lot of small businesses. We call them even micro business. I think in India you also have a lot of these micro businesses and small in Indonesia, I think you've got even more of that happening. And Agus, how do you see that with the micro and small businesses in Indonesia?
I do remember back when I was just graduated back to 1998, we have a big storm in Indonesia. Suddenly, rupiah against dollar from 2000 for $1 to becoming 16,000. I don't know. You know, it's like a massive hits for all the big businesses that Martin was just mentioned. And the one who's surviving Indonesia economy is small micro business. It's like what suggests, you know, I wouldn't surprise because I work since day one. I already work from anywhere I would like to work since 20 years ago. So Prashant mentioned about the new normal. Yes, I have my new normal since 20 years ago. I actually even have a client since 1996 because I was designing the websites. And the measure of the website works is you see if the website is up and running, not by seeing me as a person. But of course, we would like to hang out and have a chit chat, have a drink, and things like that, like a normal human being. And what I can see from the current events, as Peter mentioned, that yes, a lot of Indonesian is always know how to survive of this situation. Of course, this is not yet defined by all the scholars, you know, and I think that's the less interesting for all the people in the ground level, in the grassroots. And yeah, it's good as Martin mentioned that yes, now we are having more close contact with our neighbors. Of course, I'm lucky to live in this neighbor where actually we are celebrating a lot of things. We are even having like a hangout once a year to go somewhere and have like a camp. But I'm talking about the Indonesian in general. Now in more and more in a small, very small community, they're doing a self-isolation, which means that you as an outsider, even like if you are a Gojek sender who doing a deliveries, you cannot deliver to the houses. You have to put it in the office outside of the complex. Then they're doing within the complex because they already confirmed that no one has been infected by the COVID. So they're doing a normal within their perimeter, a small community. And they now start identifying each other like, oh, you are having good in this kind of doing food kind of things, cooking. You're good in giving a training or something like that. So we are now start talking, just doing things in a small community. And thanks to the technology of the Picon, now even my wife, my daughter, also using this same technology. So now some people are trying to exporting this content to do it like a live broadcasting it. And now there is even a website, which I just talking yesterday. They now start putting a registration online and putting things that never have any precedented before. Because people before has a very hesitance to do online, but now you don't have any option. So you just have to do it online and more, you know, doing a shopping through the an online outlet, which is very hard to explain before. But now, I mean, people just like wake up and then they forgot what they were saying yesterday. It's, yeah, this is becoming a new normal, and we just keep doing that like every day. So yeah, it's. I think I would say that we have to thankfully that we are living here in Indonesia with one of the most diverse country in the world with you know different tribes, and so we do know exactly from day one that we need to find a way to going together, and I do hope that this can stay like this, I don't know until when, When things are going back to normal, I think it is something that no one can predict. It's basically it's not has been written anywhere. So I would just like put a philosophy like just get surprised, the element of surprise.
Yeah, I like that, and I think we're running out of time, and I know you guys like to talk, and but we don't have all the time in the world, and I think we don't want to go beyond 2 hours. I would just like to summarize. I think it's a great thing that you guys see that small and medium or micro businesses are going to survive this because we can think on our feet and we can change as fast as we want to change. So I think that's fantastic, and the focus is now on short haul or smaller meetings, more regional or even local, more community-based activities. I think that's great, and applying the concept of you saying hello to your neighbor for business. I think we don't know a lot of our business partners in the community itself. So maybe this is the time to collaborate with them, to work with them instead of working with people from the UK, from Australia, but you don't even know the people in your own backyard. So I think that's great. And that's all the time we've got today. You guys, thank you so much for being speakers on the show. And you guys have got really great points. I've jotted down, I think, about 20 points here. And I'll just do a summary after this for those who did not attend this. And right, for the attendees, thank you very much. I think a lot of them stayed from the beginning right up till now, and they really like to see your faces. So I guess, Martin, you did well waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. All right, so thank you very much, everyone, and everyone on YouTube as well. See you
Terima
next
kasih.
week, Tuesday, next week, same time, same day. And to those who are celebrating Ramadan, selamat berpuasa. Happy Ramadan. See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye for now.